I've been with Kathleen for 3 years now. We met when I was working part-time at a local grocery store called Green's Market while finishing my business degree. I was 22 at the time, juggling classes and work to make ends meet. Kathleen was a cashier there, always cheerful and quick with a joke. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of 80s movies and terrible puns. Despite our connection, we didn't start dating right away. I was focused on my studies and had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that ended badly. Kathleen mentioned she was seeing someone casually, so we kept things friendly. We'd chat during breaks and sometimes grab coffee after our shifts, but that was it. After I graduated, I landed an entry-level job at a marketing firm and lost touch with most of my former co-workers, including Kathleen. Fast forward 2 years, and I bumped into her again at Green's Market. I was there picking up some groceries after work, still in my suit. Kathleen's eyes lit up when she saw me, and she teased me about looking all grown up. We caught up briefly, and Kathleen told me she was now working 2 jobs, still at Green's during the day and as a bartender at a place called the Red Room at night. I was impressed by her work ethic. She explained that she was supporting her parents, who had fallen on hard times and couldn't afford to go back to college. I felt bad for her situation, remembering how hard it was to balance work and school. We exchanged numbers and started texting regularly. Kathleen was single now, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations more and more. A few weeks later, I asked her out on a proper date. We went to a little Italian place I knew, nothing fancy but with great food. Kathleen was a blast, funny, flirtatious, and seemed genuinely interested in my life and career. Things progressed quickly from there. Kathleen was spontaneous and always up for an adventure, which was refreshing after my last relationship. She'd surprise me with picnics in the park or drag me to karaoke nights, despite my terrible singing voice. I found myself falling hard. About a year into our relationship, Kathleen's living situation changed. Her roommate was moving in with her boyfriend, and Kathleen couldn't afford the apartment alone. She was stressed about finding a new place, especially with her crazy work schedule. Without really thinking it through, I suggested she move in with me. I had a decent 1-bedroom apartment and was doing well enough at work to cover the rent solo. Kathleen was thrilled at the idea. She promised to contribute what she could to groceries and utilities, but I told her not to worry about it. I figured she could use the chance to save up some money. Looking back, I should have seen this as the first red flag. Kathleen didn't protest much about the uneven financial arrangement. For a while, things were great. I loved coming home to Kathleen after a long day at work. She'd usually be getting ready for her bartending shift, but we'd have a quick dinner together before she left. On her days off, she'd have the apartment spotless and would cook these elaborate meals. I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. A few months back, I got a big promotion at work. I was now managing my own team, and my salary nearly doubled. To celebrate, I took Kathleen out to Le Petit Chateau, this super fancy French restaurant downtown. It was way more expensive than our usual places, but I wanted to splurge for the occasion. Kathleen was over the moon. She got all dressed up and was practically glowing all evening. She kept saying things like, "I could get used to this," and "You're really raising my expectations, babe." I thought she was just joking around and enjoying the moment. But after that night, things started to change. Kathleen began hinting, and then outright asking, that we go to expensive restaurants every weekend. She'd send me links to designer clothes and shoes, saying things like, "Wouldn't I look amazing in this?" At first, I'd get her little things here and there, happy to treat her, but the requests kept getting bigger and more frequent. I tried to gently explain that even with my promotion, those kinds of expenses weren't in my budget. I was focused on paying off my student loans and starting to save for our future. Kathleen got upset, saying I was being stingy and that other guys spent way more on their girlfriends. She'd make comments about her friends whose boyfriends bought them designer bags or took them on lavish vacations. I started to feel guilty and inadequate. Had I not been generous enough? Was I failing as a boyfriend? I tried to make it up to her in other ways, planning thoughtful dates, buying her favorite snacks, giving her long massages after her shifts. But Kathleen always seemed to want more. Things came to a head last month on Kathleen's birthday. A week before, she sent me a link to a $3,000 designer bag, saying it was what she wanted as her gift. I thought she must be joking at first. When I realized she was serious, I gently told her that was way too expensive. Kathleen exploded. She accused me of not caring about her happiness and said that since I got a raise, I should be buying her nice things. She brought up every gift I'd ever given her, saying they were all cheap and thoughtless. I was stunned. I reminded her that I'd been covering all our living expenses for over a year so she could save money. Before she moved in, I always paid when we went out because I knew she made less than me. Kathleen just rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, please, don't act like you're some kind of martyr. That's what boyfriends are supposed to do." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. Is that really all she saw me as, an ATM? Despite the fight, I still wanted to do something special for her birthday. I took a half day off work to set up a surprise at our apartment. I got her favorite flowers, candles, a cake from the fancy bakery she loved, and some clothes from her favorite boutique. I waited all evening, excited to see her reaction, but Kathleen never came home. Around midnight, she finally texted saying her coworkers had thrown her a surprise party and she was staying out. I was hurt and confused. Why wouldn't she invite me to join if her coworkers were celebrating her birthday? The next morning, Kathleen stumbled in, clearly hungover. When she saw the setup, she gave a dismissive, "Oh, that's nice," before heading to the shower. I suggested we could still go do something fun together that day to celebrate, but she insisted she had to go to work. After that, I started paying more attention to Kathleen's behavior. Little things that I'd overlooked before started to nag at me. She was always vague about her work schedule and would get defensive if I asked questions. She'd come home late smelling like expensive cologne. Her phone was suddenly always face down, and she'd take calls in the other room. Then last week, everything came crashing down. I was out with a coworker, Mike, after a long day of meetings. We were walking to a bar when Mike pointed out a shiny blue Mercedes convertible parked in front of a hotel. As we got closer, admiring the car, we realized there were people inside. To my shock, I recognized Kathleen in the passenger seat, making out with a gray-haired man I'd never seen before. My heart stopped as I watched them get out of the car and head into the hotel, Kathleen hanging on his arm and laughing at something he said. I felt like I was going to be sick. Mike, bless him, took one look at my face and steered me away, saying we should head home. I was in a daze the whole way back to my apartment. I packed up all of Kathleen's things in a rage, dumping them outside the door. When Kathleen finally came home the next day, she was furious about her stuff being outside. I confronted her about what I'd seen. To my shock, she wasn't even sorry. She sneered and said, "Well, I had to find someone who could actually afford to treat me right." Then she dropped the bombshell. She'd been lying about having 2 jobs this whole time. She only worked at the grocery store. At night, she'd go to upscale bars and hotels, flirting with rich older men who would buy her gifts and take her on expensive dates. She said she had to do it because I was too cheap to give her the lifestyle she deserved. I felt like my whole world was crumbling. 3 years of memories suddenly felt tainted. Had any of it been real? How could I have been so blind? Kathleen grabbed her things and left, but not before telling me I was a fool and she had never really loved me. She said she'd only stayed with me because she thought I had potential to make more money someday. Now I'm left picking up the pieces of my life. I feel used, betrayed, and honestly, kind of stupid. How did I not see what was right in front of me? I've always prided myself on being a good judge of character, but Kathleen played me like a fiddle. I'm struggling to make sense of it all. Were there signs I missed? Could I have done anything differently? How do I trust my own judgment again after this? I know I need to move on, but right now I'm just angry and hurt. I've thrown myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid my empty apartment. I've barely told anyone what happened. I'm too embarrassed. Has anyone else experienced something like this? How do you recover from such a massive deception? Any advice would be appreciated, because right now, I feel completely lost. Update 1. It's been about 2 months since I found out about Kathleen's lies and kicked her out. The first few weeks were a blur of anger, humiliation, and sleepless nights. I kept replaying our entire relationship in my head, looking for signs I'd missed. How could I have been so blind? I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects and staying late at the office. Anything to avoid going home to my empty apartment where everything reminded me of Kathleen. My boss noticed my sudden intense focus and even commented that while he appreciated my dedication, he was concerned I might burn out. About 3 weeks after the breakup, Kathleen showed up at my apartment unannounced. She was crying, mascara running down her face, begging for another chance. She claimed she'd had a wake-up call and realized how much she truly loved me. For a moment, I felt a pull. The urge to comfort her was still there, despite everything. But then I remembered how cold and unremorseful she'd been when I first confronted her. the cruel things she'd said. I told her to leave and not contact me again. Kathleen's tears dried up instantly, replaced by a look of contempt. "Your loss," she spat as she stormed off. It was like a mask slipping, showing her true face. That encounter shook me. I realized how close I'd come to falling for her manipulation again. I decided I needed to make some changes to protect myself. I blocked Kathleen's number and all her social media accounts. I even considered moving to a new apartment, but ultimately decided I didn't want to let her disrupt my life any further. About a month ago, I ran into Sarah, one of Kathleen's friends from Green's Market. We'd met a few times when Kathleen and I were together. Sarah asked how Kathleen and I were doing, and I was surprised she didn't know about the breakup. When I explained what happened, Sarah was shocked. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she said. "I had no idea. Kathleen's been telling everyone that you broke up with her because you were cheating. She's been playing the heartbroken victim this whole time." I felt a fresh wave of anger. Even now, Kathleen was lying and manipulating people. Sarah felt bad and decided to tell me some things she thought I should know. Apparently, Kathleen had always been obsessed with status and luxury, even back when we first started dating. Sarah said Kathleen would brag to coworkers about how she was going to train me to spoil her. She'd make comments like, "Just wait. Once he gets established in his career, I'll have him wrapped around my finger." Sarah admitted she and the other girls had enabled Kathleen's behavior by laughing it off as jokes. They never thought Kathleen would actually cheat or steal. Sarah apologized for not saying anything sooner, saying she felt partly responsible for what happened. The most disturbing thing Sarah told me was that Kathleen had a pattern of targeting guys like me, hardworking, nice guys with good career potential. She'd play the struggling, devoted girlfriend until the guy got established in his career. Then she'd start pushing for expensive things, cheating if she didn't get her way. Sarah knew of at least 2 other guys Kathleen had done this to before me. I was disgusted to learn how calculated Kathleen's manipulation had been from the very beginning. But in a way, it helped me stop blaming myself so much. This was who Kathleen was. I never had a chance of changing her or being enough for her. Last week, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a guy claiming to be one of the men Kathleen had been seeing behind my back. He said Kathleen had stolen some expensive jewelry from him and he was planning to go to the police. He wanted to know if I had any information on her whereabouts. I told him I hadn't had any contact with Kathleen in months and had no idea where she was. After we hung up, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Kathleen for continuing to cause chaos, but also a sense of karmic justice that her actions were catching up with her. I'm doing my best to move on, but it's been a struggle. I've started seeing a therapist to work through my trust issues. It's helping, but I still find myself second-guessing every interaction, wondering if people have ulterior motives. I've also started volunteering at a local animal shelter on weekends. Focusing on helping others has been healing in its own way. Plus, it's nice to be around beings that are incapable of lying or manipulation. My friends have been great, checking in on me and trying to get me out of the house. I'm grateful for their support, but sometimes it's exhausting pretending to be okay around them. I know they mean well, but I'm not ready for their attempts at setting me up on dates or telling me I need to get back out there. Dating still feels impossible right now. The thought of opening up to someone new, of being vulnerable again, makes me feel physically ill. But for the first time in a while, I'm starting to feel hopeful that I'll be able to trust again someday. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm trying to rebuild my sense of self outside of my relationship with Kathleen. I'm rediscovering old hobbies, making plans for the future, and learning to enjoy my own company again. It's a slow process, and some days are harder than others. But I'm determined not to let Kathleen's betrayal define the rest of my life. I deserve better than that. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and honestly, I wish I could say everything is great now. The truth is, I'm still dealing with the fallout from Kathleen's deception in ways I never expected. A few weeks ago, I got a message on social media from someone claiming to be Kathleen's sister, Olivia. I was immediately suspicious. Kathleen had never mentioned having a sister in the 3 years we were together. But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet Olivia for coffee. Olivia turned out to be a few years younger than Kathleen, with the same green eyes but a completely different demeanor. Where Kathleen was always bubbly and outgoing, Olivia seemed more reserved and thoughtful. She said she'd only recently found out what Kathleen did to me and wanted to apologize on behalf of their family. Over the next hour, Olivia filled in a lot of blanks about Kathleen's background. Apparently, their parents were actually quite well off, owners of a successful chain of car dealerships. They'd cut Kathleen off financially when she dropped out of college after her freshman year. Kathleen had always been the family wild child, getting into trouble and lying to get her way from a young age. Olivia revealed that Kathleen had been in and out of therapy for years, but never stuck with it for long. She'd been diagnosed with some kind of personality disorder, though Olivia wasn't sure of the specifics. Their parents had tried repeatedly to get Kathleen help, but she always found a way to charm her way out of treatment. Kathleen's always been obsessed with maintaining a luxurious lifestyle, Olivia explained. Even as kids, she would manipulate our parents to get expensive things. She'd lie about needing something for school or pretend to be bullied because she didn't have the latest designer clothes. As she got older, she just got better at her schemes. Hearing all this made me feel conflicted. On one hand, it helped explain some of Kathleen's behavior and made me feel less like a complete idiot for not seeing through her lies. On the other, knowing she had opportunities and support that she threw away just made her actions seem even more selfish. I thanked Olivia for reaching out but told her I wasn't interested in any further contact with Kathleen or their family. Olivia understood and apologized again before we parted ways. The whole encounter left me feeling unsettled, dredging up emotions I thought I'd put behind me. In other news, I recently started a new job at a larger marketing firm. It's a step up career-wise with more responsibilities and better pay. But I'm struggling more than I expected. I find myself constantly second-guessing my abilities and worrying that I'm not good enough for the position. My boss has already pulled me aside once to ask if everything's okay, saying I seem hesitant in meetings and overly apologetic about my work. I realized that Kathleen's betrayal shook my self-confidence more than I'd like to admit. I'm working on it, but it's a daily battle to silence the voice in my head that says, I'm not good enough. I've gone on a few dates in the past couple of months, but nothing serious. A colleague set me up with her friend, and I've been on a couple of coffee dates from dating apps. But I still find it hard to open up or trust anyone. Every time I start to like someone, I find myself analyzing their every word and action for signs of deception. It's exhausting and has killed any potential relationships before they really start. My friends keep telling me I need to let go and move on. They mean well, but it's not that simple. The experience with Kathleen fundamentally changed how I view relationships and people in general. I'm working on it in therapy, but progress feels painfully slow sometimes. For now, I'm trying to focus on myself, my career, my hobbies, my health. I've started going to the gym regularly and signed up for a photography class I've always wanted to take. I know I can't let Kathleen's actions define the rest of my life. But some days it still feels like she took a part of me I'll never get back. Update 3. It's been almost a year since everything went down with Kathleen. I didn't think I'd be posting another update, but something happened recently that I needed to get off my chest. Last month, I was at a work conference in Chicago. It was a big deal, my first time presenting to industry leaders since starting my new job. I was nervous but excited, feeling like things were finally starting to look up in my career. After my presentation, which went surprisingly well, I decided to celebrate with a drink at the hotel bar. I was feeling good, proud of myself for nailing the presentation despite my lingering self-doubt. That's when I heard it, a familiar laugh that made my blood run cold. I turned and saw Kathleen sitting at the other end of the bar with an older man in an expensive suit. She was hanging on his every word, giggling and touching his arm, the same act she used to pull with me. She looked exactly the same, maybe even more. Polished in a designer dress I could never have afforded to buy her. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All the emotions I thought I'd processed came flooding back. Anger, hurt, humiliation. I must have been staring because Kathleen eventually noticed me. For a split second, I saw shock and maybe even shame cross her face. But then she quickly composed herself, whispered something to the man, and they left together. I spent the rest of the night in a daze, barely sleeping. The next morning, I had a message from Kathleen. She said seeing me brought up old feelings and she wanted to apologize again. She claimed she'd changed and was getting help for her issues. She asked if we could meet to talk while we were both still in Chicago. Part of me was curious. Did she really change? Was there any chance of getting real closure? But a bigger part knew it was a bad idea. Kathleen was a master manipulator. Meeting her would only open old wounds. I didn't respond to her message. Instead, I threw myself into the remaining conference sessions, trying to distract myself. On the last day, as I was checking out of the hotel, I literally ran into the man I'd seen Kathleen with at the bar. We started chatting and he mentioned being newly single after a crazy gold digger tried to bleed him dry. I felt sick realizing Kathleen was still up to her old tricks. This experience showed me I still have work to do in moving past what happened. Seeing Kathleen brought back all the insecurities and self-doubt I've been working so hard to overcome. But it also reinforced that I made the right choice in cutting her out of my life completely. Her patterns haven't changed. I'm the one who's grown and learned from this. On the flight home, I did a lot of thinking. I'm not naive enough anymore to think I'll ever fully get over what Kathleen did. It's a part of my story now. But I'm learning to see it as just one chapter, not the whole book. I'm writing new chapters now, focusing on my career, rebuilding my social circle, and slowly opening myself up to the possibility of a healthy relationship someday. When I got home, I called my therapist and scheduled an extra session. I know I'll need some help processing this unexpected encounter. But for the first time, I also felt a sense of pride in how far I've come. A year ago, seeing Kathleen might have sent me into a tailspin. Now, while it was still painful, I was able to recognize her manipulation and prioritize my own well-being. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm learning to trust my gut again and to value myself. Kathleen may have taken advantage of my kindness, but I refuse to let that change who I am at my core. I'm still that guy who wants to help others and see the best in people. I'm just wiser now about protecting my own heart in the process.